Welcome back, Hawks fans. Your boy Bryce Willis back at it again for another Believe in Hawks episode. I know it's been a while. Haven't posted in a while, but we are back. We are here. And you know me, I don't like to come back alone. So we have another special guest joining the show today. You may have seen him. It's gone viral a couple times on X, Twitter, whatever you call it. You know what I'm saying? He's a very big part of the Hawks community, giving his intakes on what's happening with the team. We appreciate all opinions. I like to really welcome Preet onto the podcast. Sir, appreciate you coming on, man. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate you coming up, inviting me onto the show, man. I apologize in the background noise real quick. So,
Nah, you good. Like I said, man, I appreciate you coming on. But like I said, I've seen some of the stuff you said about the Hawks, and so obviously, I feel like this would be a good way for us to converse, talk about it, and kind of just give people insight to where we see the Hawks right now, especially after the offseason they've had up to this point. And so let's go ahead and dive right into it, sir. So really the biggest thing right now in Hawk circles is the Trae Young contract talks. Mark Spears coming out saying that Trae Young is disappointed the Hawks have not offered him a new deal yet. A lot of people may be going with Hawks are wanting to see how the year plays out first before offering him. Some people wonder if you offered Trae right now, would he take less? And maybe waiting could, depending on how the season goes, change that number. But the one common thing we've heard across the board is that Trae Young getting the max is unlikely. So I just want to get your take on that situation with Trae and his contract, and what do you think the Hawks should be doing when it comes to that situation?
I mean, everybody knows where I kind of stand on Trae. I think he's a great player. Personally, at this stage right now, I would not be offering him a max contract, and I think Anzi is kind of playing it right. You put all this talent around him. It's your first year within the GM role, so kind of just get a sense of let the team play it out, see what works, what doesn't work, and then you can kind of just go from there. I would personally be offering him less than the max. I would like to think that Anzi probably has offered him less than the max, and frankly, I just can't imagine Trae being someone that takes less than the max. And that's probably where the disconnect is. But then again, we don't really know based on the reports. The reports make it sound like he hasn't been offered anything. So I would offer him a discount. If he takes a discount, that's great. If not, I would just let him play it out till the season goes. I tweeted this the other day, but if they play well and they start winning games, everybody's going to get paid. Kristaps is working for an extension. Trae's working for an extension. To this day, Dyson technically still is extension eligible and has one coming. So it's like everybody wants the money. If they all play well, they win games, they all will get paid. And I don't think Anzi would have any problem handing out a max contract when those situation arises. But until then, I would just play it safe. And if he takes a discount, he takes one. If not, I have no problem waiting another year. It's not like he has. The key thing I think people forget is is he really going to decline his player option for next summer to go into free agency, or how is it going to play? We're still 2 years technically away from an extension needing to be done. So personally, I'm in a good wait and see mode. I don't really mind it at all.
Yeah, and I think too with that situation is, I was going to ask you was about, okay, what if Trae comes into this year and has a great year? Let's say he makes an All-NBA team, and how that could potentially impact contract negotiations. Would they still be as willing? Okay, yeah, we'll give Trae this amount of money that we wouldn't have given maybe this current offseason,
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I mean, I think Anzi would have a first row seat to kind of seeing it is maybe Trae is that guy that we build around. I think right now he's just kind of figuring it all out. He is a cap guru specialist by nature, so technically I don't think he wants to do anything or is in a rush to do anything. But I think if you told me Trae played at an All NBA level, I think Anzi would be like, all right, Trae, you're toe tied to the city. The city's tied to you. Let's get this done. I think De'Aaron Fox's extension, which I think is a personal overpay, would be right on the table for him to take and be like, all right, well, we're seeing all the other guards get paid. Now it's your turn to get your money as well. Thanks for sticking with us while we figured it out. But I have no problem. At that point, it's okay, I still personally would think it's an overpay, but I understand the business aspect of it. You won games, you played at the level, now you're getting your dues. So
no, I mean that makes sense. I mean, I think one of the biggest things too is like you said with De'Aaron Fox getting a new contract extension. How does that impact Trae? And like I said, if they don't pay him this offseason, then obviously it really doesn't have maybe much of an impact right now. And so I think it'll be interesting to kind of see how they kind of maneuver it. Obviously, there's still plenty of off season left, so it's not like an offer can't come. It just isn't maybe something they're trying to do at the moment. This front office and Onsi seems to want to, take their time with things. Obviously, if they see something they like, they'll go after it, but they're not going to go at it. Like, they're not just going to rush it. They're not just be like, all right, we're just going to go ahead and just try to do something. Because like they said, Dyson Daniels is another guy they're looking to extend who I think wants to get extended. And it feels like between the two, you would think Dyson would be the one most likely extended this offseason, right?
For sure. I think once free agency ended, the next order of business after free agency in the draft was for sure get Dyson's extension. And I think that's probably what Onzi's focused on right now too. So it makes more sense that he would be the one first, especially if he puts in another incredible year. You want to get that contract cheap, and I think there's a pretty good baseline of what his contracts could look like with Caruso getting an extension. Lou Dort's money is there, or Lou Dort, I believe, had a contract at one point. Sorry if I butchered that, but there's baselines for a Dyson extension to be there. So I think that's definitely the next order of business for sure.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. Which I'll ask you one more thing about Trae before we move on. Is for you evaluating Trae. Obviously, you talked about wins, you talked about success on the court. But what do you want to see from Trae Young this season specifically? That's just like, if he does this for me, I think we can talk about giving him a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, for starters, I think it goes into his off-ball game. I think you continue to see improvements in that all over the course of his career, but taking it to the next level, we have, in my opinion, I know a lot of people have this idea that we don't have a backup point guard or they don't know what the backup point guard situation is, but personally, I think we do have a lot of secondary creation ability and secondary playmaking on the roster. So I think there is much more opportunity to get Trae involved in actions, get him involved in DHO with a Jaylen or something, and just kind of get him more involved off the ball and kind of get that activity level going up so that we're not so reliant on pick and roll, and so that we just have a more diversified offense moving forward. That would be starters. Second, I think it'd be nice he's always generally one of the healthier Hawks, so continuing good health would be positive. I think if he got stronger in the offseason, that'd be great. I think especially if we'll touch on it later, I think, when we talk about Kristaps, but like his finishing numbers aren't the best. And so like just naturally improving his body, getting stronger, being able to get more paint touches, getting to the rim and kind of being able to improve his finishing would be nice. And then as always, I mean, I don't think he's as bad of a defender as the narrative says at all. I think he tries. He's always he always communicates his pre-switches pretty well, I think, and he's kind of understanding where he needs to be on the court. So overall, I think that's all I really need to see is put a healthy season together, be better off the ball, continue to improve defense so the team's not at the bottom 15 in the second half of the rankings on defensively, and then kind of go from there and just get some wins and hopefully make a deep playoff run for once.
Yeah, and that's obviously the most important point there is just making a deep playoff run. Hawks obviously with expectations, and Trae Young really, I think, feels excited about this team and what they can do. Obviously everybody likes to go back to the 2021 team and just that feeling around that team. And Trae's mentioned that before. So it'll be interesting to kind of see when they get into the season how things kind of play out, especially in the Eastern Conference. That is looked at as very wide open for the Hawks to actually go in and make a run if they can stay healthy and the right things come together. Now, one thing though about the team is they aren't finished completely with this team. They still have one roster spot available. I wanted to ask you, it seems like from what we're hearing, whenever the Warriors deal with the Kuminga stuff, Horford, they keep saying Horford's going there. It's just the way
Horford and Melton.
Exactly. And I know that was somebody that was mentioned in connection with the Hawks, Al Horford. But that's not going to happen. Where would you be looking to fill that final roster spot? I mean, is it still big? Are you looking at a big? Are you looking at point guard? What are you looking at?
Yeah, I think for me personally, I would be looking for a third big just because I think with Jaylen's history as a wing, but wing forward, Kristaps' history, even Mo Gay's kind of got some injury concerns. So personally, I would be looking for a third big, just someone that they have that body in case of emergency that they need. The other option, like you said, would be like a third guard. Maybe like a veteran guard just to get in the mix. Like I can't think of any names off the head. Maybe like in the olden days, I was always big Monty Morris fan. Like I was like, oh, that's like I feel like that's a guy that shows up to the team and knows his role and knows what he can do. So it's like someone like in the mold of like that would be the third body. But I do think that I'm personally thinking. I just think that that roster spot is going to stay open until probably buyout deadline time. Like I can't imagine they're in any rush to fill it out because their top 10, maybe even 11 guys I feel like are pretty set, and so it's kind of just added additional flexibility. Like with anything this offseason, I think there really is no rush anymore to kind of fill in holes. Like I think we have a good sense of what the team is going to be, what they should look like, and kind of we'll address and patch holes as we need it moving forward.
Yeah. It's interesting. Essentially, you said that because I remember last year we had the Cody Zeller debacle, and people were like, "We are hurt. Why do we not have the roster spot?" So it'll be interesting to see if they do leave that open. But at the same time, the difference is you can fill it when you need it. So it's not the exact same situation where you're basically handicapped because the player don't want to set buy it or something like that. It's like, all right, well, we may leave this open. We do. It means you never know. Like there's still guys looking at it could sign later. Obviously, we'll see what happens in camp, et cetera, et cetera. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what they do with that spot whenever that decision comes for the roster. But sticking in the front court, I got to talk about him. I feel like you weren't the biggest fan of Asa Newell from Georgia, the first round pick the Hawks selected this year. Big thing for him. I said is I think they have a very simple plan for him this year. Rebound, energy, defense. Yeah. Do that, we're cool. And then we'll develop you as the season goes on, and we'll see where that ends up going. What are you like? What are your expectations for him this year? Like, what for you? I know, like I said, you weren't the biggest fan of it, but for you, like, what is it where it's like, if he does this, I'm cool. Like, I ain't got no problems. Like, what? Like, is it just as simple? Like, just do these things and we're straight? Because it feels like the way they play, it fits him. Because I don't think it's just gonna be like a regular half court. All right, post a guy up and do something. I think when they're running, fast break, transition, they could take advantage of that. Young guy obviously needs to get stronger. But what is your perception on Asa right now with the current role of this team?
Yeah, I would say I wasn't a fan of him at 13 by any means, or 13, 14. But when you get to where they picked him and get an additional round pick, I can at least cope myself into the player and be okay with what I think will be his likely league outcome, which is a third big. That being said, I think you touched on it. The main thing I would hope for is improvements to the body, which will be natural over time. He's a 19-year-old kid, 20-year-old kid, so you'll see that over time. But mainly, I think his skill set right now is just high motor, high energy guy, crash the glass, crash glass on the offensive end, putbacks, things like that. Just kind of do all the dirty work, hope to rebound. I would say in the short stints I watched the summer leagues of the various games, his shooting looks much better than I would have expected it to be. At least like his jump shot and form look like it's a really repeatable process that I think that with more reps he'll naturally be a pretty decent shooter, maybe even hit league average if we get lucky. So I do think his shooting is good. I was kind of a bit thrown off that his athleticism didn't pop in the way that I thought it would when I kind of watched college tape. Like in college, I don't know, he seems like a very bouncy type of player, and frankly in summer league it didn't seem like that was the case. But I'm just hoping that he can come in, spill some minutes in the event that Mo Gay is either out or their Mo Gay situation kind of takes a downturn. Because in my head, he's going to be the backup. Mo Gay will be the backup power forward, and Asa will spend a lot of time in the G League, kind of just developing all the skills that he needs to be getting, especially having the ball in his hands more, so he can kind of learn through by making mistakes, which is perfectly fine. I'm a big fan of using the G League to kind of develop. I know a lot of Hawks fans are like, why are we wasting people here? But I think our system is great down there, and having a developmental program like the Skyhawks is one that's worth investing in and using. So ideally, he serves as like a backup to Mo Gay, come in, be a motor guy, play fast, play quick, make a decision to kind of play good on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, I wouldn't expect much outside of being like a pick and throw, being a play finisher, as mostly in pick and roll with Trae, or kind of just running the lane down in the full court in transition.
Yeah, and I think too, it's like you mentioned the G League, and that's obviously been a big part of the development system in Atlanta. How guys have improved. Vic Krejci is one of those guys who has been a beneficiary of that system. And I think for Ace too, I think you know I think they're in a position where they know, like, hey, we don't have to expect a ton from him right off the
Yeah,
bat. I mean, you have a Kongwu, Porzingis, Jaylen, Mo ahead of him. So saying, hey, Ace Newell is your third big is not,
yeah,
that's not like, oh, it's not like you hate that because it's like a big with potential. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So it's like
literally.
you're not hating that. So really, I think people are gonna obviously keep an eye on him just to see when he does get minutes. We'll see because, like you said, we think Mo Gay's gonna be back and forth. Some people wonder if that's a competition.
Yeah,
I'm assuming the Hawks will give both an opportunity. Because we know what Mo Gay needs to improve. If he can just
yeah,
become a average shooter, I mean, if he could just do that,
yeah.
I mean that works because we see what he can do defensively. We know what
Oh
his
yeah.
strength is. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how that position formulates out after Jaylen. Um, and speaking of systems, a guy who's currently playing right now is Zachary Richeche. We're playing with the French team right now. We've seen how he's really kind of developed his body throughout this offseason. That was a big thing for him. Skinny coming into the league,
Yeah,
you need to put on muscle. And he mentioned in an interview recently that the fact that the season did end as early, it gave him more time to
yeah,
work on himself to get prepared. And so with that, and obviously I know the first game wasn't great, and then also it's also weird sometimes international games because if international ball, certain guys are like, hey, you're doing this and this is all you're doing. So you sometimes maybe can't see what you would maybe see if they were in the league, depending on the type of player they are. Or sometimes a player who's a end of the rotation player is like a starter of the national team, and now they're hooping. Like Patty Mills is a prime example. So,
yeah.
what are your expectations for Zach this year? Obviously with that, what is it that you're like, hey, if we can get this from Zach, I think we're going to be headed in a good direction.
I mean, I think I have a lot more tempered expectations than the rest of people. Frankly, I just don't see that big of a jump happening. But I also don't think that this team kind of needs him to have that big of a jump. I think, frankly, for Zach, if he can just give me what he did shooting wise the second half of the season
Mm-hmm.
on good volume, I would be very much happy with kind of just that trajectory going forth for 82 games this year. The body looks good, like you said. Like it does. He is a grinder, and you can see that with how he's transformed his body in just over 10 months of time. So, and I do think hopefully that I'd like to see that translate into better finishing, playing through contact. I don't envision a much of a post game happening at any point, but in the event that he can attack closeouts and attack mismatches in a form like that, that would be incredibly helpful, especially with the added weight. I think you'll see it mostly impact on defense though, and you kind of saw it at the start of that international game against Montenegro the other day when he got the block. So I think naturally his body will be well positioned to just deal with bigger bodies because the Hawks naturally, I mean, outside of Jaylen last year, did we really have anyone that can guard bigger bodies? And you're asking a 19-year-old, 200-pound French kid that just got drafted to do it. So it's like we have good defenders, but we don't really have a bunch of good defenders with size. We do not. We have Jaylen, we have Zach, and Mo Gay. If you want to treat him as in this mode of a bigger, good defender, yeah, but that's a big defender more often, more than a wing. So it's nice that he turned his body. I'd like to see improvements on the defensive end from him because we do struggle with guarding bigger wings. So I think that'll be nice to see this year. But numbers wise, I'm not expecting too much. I think he's probably a 15, 16 points per game scorer, and I think frankly that's all the Hawks need from him right now. 20 people are expecting or want. I think that's a bit of a stretch, but we'll see.
Nah, I mean, it's actually cool that, hey, I'm glad people have these reputations. I know some people, when he came into the league, there was a lot of what is he, what's the ceiling? And I think I think he's interesting because I think so many people are just like, what is he? Because I think it's easy to be like, oh, he won't be this, but then he has those flashes where he he had the Cleveland game where he was 7-7 in the first half, 21 points. And you're like,
yeah,
I mean, if he could do that, and I think some people are like, okay, if he can get closer to one or the other more consistently, I think that will give people a better idea of what they can expect from him. And so, but it sounds like to me that you think maybe his jump is going to come more defensively based on what you said. is going to be more. That's where his jump really impacts the team.
Yeah, for sure. I think they really need him. I mean, I think 1 through 5 is set, and I know there's debate of who the fifth guy is, but 1 through 4, who the starters are going to be. And so I think naturally, like you keep Jaylen. Once you can keep Jaylen more towards the rim and have his secondary rim protection alongside Kristaps or Onyeka, naturally Zach has to be much more on the perimeter. And I think by transforming his body, he'll be much more better suited to kind of deal with those things. I think one thing that he did on his prospect tape coming into the draft was like he did have a lot of weak side help blocks, and he did have this on tape where like as a low man he can come in and rotate and help. And so I think you're already adding that now if you go small with, and you can put Zach at maybe the 4th spot if you need to in a very small lineup. But then also now you have that bigger body naturally on the wing too, and you already got Dyson wrecking havoc in the passing lanes, and so you can hide Trae accordingly too. So naturally, I think that's where his area is. Just give me good shooting like you did the second half of the season on good volume, and then take a heavier load on the defensive end, and I think we'll be good moving forward.
Yeah, and he says we agree to that happens, and Zach goes ahead and tries to make people feel like he's worth the first pick. Obviously, we know the draft wasn't great, but if you look at it now, it's not like SARS over here. We know defensively he's good, but it's like Washington fans, they're like, Jesus Christ, his offense. So I mean, it can very much vary, but it's just all about just finding the guy who fits your team the best. So we're definitely looking forward to see what Zach can gives us this year on the floor. Speaking of that 5th guy, that is a debate. Is it going to be a Congo at center? Is it going to be Kristaps Porzingis? I think at the end of the day, everybody knows the better player is Kristaps just because at his peak. But at the same time, you're like, oh, the health. And then you're like, well, DeAndre Hunter played well because he was coming off the bench and and he was playing limited minutes and et cetera. And so that's why people think Okongwu could play. Plus, he did play well as a starter last year. What is your take on that situation? Does it matter who starts, or is it more about who finishes?
It definitely matters who finishes rather than who starts. I'm going to say personally, I think Kristaps is going to start, and I don't think there really is a contest. But it wouldn't shock me when we look at the end of this year that they're both sitting at 41 games started. Like it's a very well scenario that Kristaps is going to miss enough time that Onyeka is going to be starting so much of the games anyways that frankly to me it really doesn't matter to me. I think Kristaps should start just because there's a case that he's literally like the best player Trae's ever played with, and I think there's a legit case that he's like a top 25 guy when healthy. And so frankly, I think just get your best players on the court as much as possible and play them together and see what happens. Like they really can use his floor spacing, they can really use his rim protection, and then frankly he's also playing in a contract year, so naturally I think he'll have much more motivation intrinsically to kind of go out there and show the city, but most probably show the front offices what his worth is and kind of paying for his bag. So, and hopefully we get to see him here in the Eurobasket too. Hopefully, fingers crossed, he does not get any injuries in that too. But I'm Team KP right now. Love Onyeka. Have no problems with him. He's great, big to have on the team, and perfect complement to Kristaps in my opinion. I hope we see a lot of double big lineups this year at times too, because we finally have the flexibility to do that. So, but Kristaps, I think, will be the starter on opening night.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, I agree with you that it's really about who finishes. Because I've said it's one of those things where you can kind of play it by game flow. If Okongwu just happens to have a really strong game, where you justify, oh well, yeah, he can finish. I think there isn't a hesitation. I don't think they're like, oh my god, we're nervous about this. Especially when I think we play smaller teams. I think Okongwu can really do well. Especially a team, for example, the Warriors. I feel like Okongwu always has really good games against the Warriors. And that's just because they're naturally not a big team usually. So that's usually a better matchup for him. But I think, Kristaps will have moments where, especially with his ability to shoot, space the floor, I think that's where the Hawks are really hoping to take advantage of that. And I know a lot of people have talked about how that's going to help Trae, but I want to ask you how it's going to help Jaylen. Because, playing if he's starting with Jaylen, Jaylen, we know his game is more around the rim. Even though he's working on the 3 ball, we know that's where he makes his hay. And if you have a guy like Kristaps who has that gravity to take people out of the paint, especially with his size, would it be should we expect a jump in that area for Jaylen just because he's going to get more one-on-one looks closer to the rim just because of that, and Clint's not in there or whoever?
Oh, 100%. And I said this on D Lee's pod that I did too, but Jaylen never got to play with Onyeka as a starter either this year.
Mm.
And so naturally, I think it's going to be a completely different situation for Jaylen from last year to this year from a spacing standpoint, that his minutes are always going to have a big on the court that can actually be a true spacer. I know people think like, oh, Onyeka, his shooting is so-so, but the fact that he can at least stretch to the corners, he's taking he's taking threes on the wings. Like he's a legit spacer for Jaylen compared to what Jaylen's situation was with Clint clogging the paint every time. So I
Mm.
think Jaylen should be a mismatch hunter for the Hawks. Anything that's not in transition for him, he should be able to attack closeouts. He should be able to. Teams are going to put their big wings on Trae. That's what happens every time. That's how they're going to guard him. Jaylen, you got to be a force in the paint. Make these people defend you much more and take that pressure off of Trae offensively. I think Kristaps is going to be the main person that takes the load off of Trae offensively, but Jaylen, this is a perfect situation for Jaylen to enter into, and I think he's going to 20, 10, 5 really much could be a possibility again because he's very well situated in this scenario this year.
Yeah, and like I said, the biggest thing for him is just staying healthy. He stays healthy. I think Jaylen has all the talent in the world. And I said too, I think one thing that's underrated about if the Hawks make the playoffs is, you watch ball, ball. The playoffs are outside of your stars. Stars can have up and down games. I just feel like the playoffs, your other guys they're going to be up and down. That's just how it is. Like you're going to have a game where it's like, what happened? And then you're going to have another game where, thank God for this guy. And you could be great through the regular season and you get to the postseason and they're like, get this man on my team. And so it'll be interesting because Dyson and Zach, I mean, if they're in that situation, that's new for them. And I think that's going to be interesting how fans kind of see that because I would think you're going to see inconsistency. You're going to see some inconsistency, especially offensively out of Dyson. Even Jaylen maybe at times, just because that's his first time being a starter in that situation. So I feel like they're going to definitely lean on guys like Trae, KP, Nikhil. Yeah. Nikhil as well because he has playoff experience. I mean, even if Kongu's gone, he was part of the Eastern Conference Finals team. So, those are guys that have experience. And I guess to a certain extent, Luke Kennard. But we know what his role is. So I'll be curious to see how they kind of come along. So obviously a man who's going to be responsible for making all of this work, Quin Snyder, right? He's entering his third full year as the Hawks head coach. I said this is going to be the first year. This is before all the moves too. This year was going to be the first year where there is an actual pressure to win games. Like, all right, we gotta break through here, Quinn. They gave him a much improved roster. I think him and Ansi have worked hand in hand in trying to get this roster where they wanted to be. I know Quint's faced some criticism, for rotations and things, and we can get into injuries have limited his options in terms of what he can do in certain situations, et cetera. And sometimes we're like, why does he keep guys in the game too long? But ultimately, how do you feel about Quin Snyder going into this year? Because, I mean, around the league, he's very still widely respected as one of the better coaches in the game, and a lot of people really appreciate his mind for the game. But how do you feel about Quinn with this team?
Yeah, I mean, I've been defending Quinn nonstop since he's taken the job. I feel like he's been given a bad hand, and people have kind of just been holding that against him because of past success we had under one fluke run, in my opinion. But you're right. This is the first year Quinn. There's expectations on the team to be good, and frankly, I think Quinn will get them to where they need to be. I mean, I think people forget that Quinn's an offensive savant. Like his Utah teams were so good offensively, and I think that he finally got what he needed. Last year, our biggest issue was our shot quality is great, but the shots just don't fall no matter who's taking them. And what did they go out in the offseason do with Onzi? Shooting. KP, Luke Kennard. And so naturally, I think you're going to see I said last year before the season started that there's no way a Trae and Quinn-led team would not be top 10 offensively. And I don't think they finished anywhere near the top 10 offensively last year with all the injuries. But I would be shocked if this team is not offensively within the top 10 just based on all the shooting that they added and kind of how things played last year and with them patching it over the offseason. I think Quinn is the right coach for this team. He seems to be a great players guy. The front office seems to love him too, and he seems to have great relationships with everybody. I am a little scared come playoff time in the back of my head, like what's he gonna do rotation wise? I feel like I would like to see him experiment a lot more in the regular season. I think he kind of gets a little bit too rigid at times, and he's like, okay, this guy plays this set amount of minutes. He kind of gets really bottled down to his structure and kind of his how his rotation schedule is. So ideally, hopefully, because I think we are 10, 11 players deep, that the regular season can be a lot of time that we can experiment and figure it out. But then come playoff time, I really would like to see him get down to the 9-10 number, which he's usually pretty good at. But play your best guys in the playoffs, Quinn. If we get there, that's all I ask. Just put your best guys on the court as much as possible. But I think he's going to lead the Hawks to good stuff. And if I know we have the FanDuel sponsorship here, but if I was as a betting man, I would take Quinn. I would take a hard look at Quinn's Coach of the Year odds, because there's a legit chance that the Hawks, I think, will be in that 3-4 seed, and there's no better player or no better person that they could get the award than Quinn, in my opinion.
Hey man, probably looking at the odds, but you probably make some money off that for real if you put a bet.
Yeah.
You know, I say it depends how much you want to trust it. But I mean, yeah, I think, like I said, I think Quinn at the same time has not given the greatest hand at times. And I think he's had to work with what he's done. But also, I think like last year, I think he would just sometimes just default to going small, which I get. You're like, I can't really trust Mo, can't really trust Dom.
Niang was shooting the lights out too, so
yeah, Niang shoots is like, well, he can't defend, but he can shoot. So offensively, we're at a better level. Even sometimes Terrence Mann, and I know people are. Hey, it's so funny. I said Terrence Mann. It's so funny because he'll be the reason why we're down 10. But then when we make those like what they call it fake comebacks, he'll be like part of the reason why we make the fake comeback, and it's just like, golly. So I mean, listen, he's moved on. Wish him the best, etc. But I think obviously there's a little bit more structure with what they have this year, and I think it seems like he has more options.
Yeah,
it's not one of those like, oh, if we lose a guy, it's like, oh, we have nothing left here. It's like we have options, and I think that's been one of the biggest things. I think that's been hindering this roster at times is that they are limited at certain positions. So we'll definitely have to see how Quinn kind of handles that. Now, I do want to ask you about this because I kind of saw you mention this a little bit during summer league, the backup 3 spot. Right now you're probably looking up what? Probably I don't know if I'm saying his last name. Caleb Houston from Orlando, who we picked up. Vic Krejci. And then if you're looking even deeper than that, two-way Jacob Toppin, which I'm a big Toppin guy. I'm not gonna lie.
I like Toppin. I like Toppin too. He showed me something in summer league.
I said this bad. I said G League. He hooped. The one Hawks game he did, he hooped. He signed like 20 that game. And then in summer league, he hooped. I say everywhere we put him, he hooped. So it's not like he does something where it's like, I don't know about. Hey, he's playing well. So I can't hate him. But those are your 3 options after Zach. And I know one of your big things was like, we just need a big one. When we signed Caleb, I think you felt better about it just because he improved a lot, especially last year, the 3-point shot, the second half of the year, and all after the All-Star break. And, people are wondering, okay, where would they go? You can make a case for each one. I say Vic is more of a ball handler at that spot, so maybe that could be something. Jacob, to me, is more of kind of a scorer at that spot, but, we'll see. We would have to see how he does his NBA competition. And then, like I said, we talked about Caleb and what he could do. So what are you feeling right now with that backup 3 spot? Who are you like, I'm trusting right now with that spot, with those minutes after Zach?
Well, my honest answer, nobody. But I think that if with the options that they have, I'd probably lean Vic gets the first crack at it just because I think he understands the system. He's a good connective piece. I think they've added all these. I think Vic's strengths are not being a primary initiator, but more so being that connective playmaker. And so in a lineup with Luke Kennard, with Nah, if Dyson's playing the backup minutes, or if Jaylen's got the ball, I think he's got a lot of optionality there to kind of figure out his role and go back to where his strengths were rather than being that primary backup ball handler, which they've had to do at times when Kobe got hurt and Trae missed time or Dyson missed time and so forth. So, but that's kind of where my head is at. I do like the Houston pickup, especially for the cost and what rate they got him, but he's a big wing that plays like he's Trae Young. Like he does not play like a big wing whatsoever. He's going to be someone that just you're missing some shooting tonight. You need a body. Stick him in a corner. Stick him on a 3-point line and let him be a play finisher. Which, in all honesty, is fine considering that you have Zach doing that. So like, there's a lot of role consistency between the two of them in a sense. But so I do trust Caleb in that. Personally, I also wouldn't mind. I know you didn't say it as an option, but like Nikhil's pretty long. I
Yeah.
wouldn't, and frankly, Dyson is also long. Like it's not my go-to option. It's not my preferred by any means, but I can see a lot of scenarios where Dyson or Nikhil are technically sitting at the 3 spot to either close games or even just get a stop whatever at the end of games. Like they will go smaller at those spots and then kind of just make it up with Jaylen and Onyeka or Jaylen and Kristaps in the front court. So I think they do have options. Personally, I think Vic gets the first crack, but it's a bleak situation in my opinion. That's why we hope that draft wise we had wing options that we could have took. Nick Clifford could have been an option for us, and I think that would have been interesting. But again, we'll see what happens there. But it's by far the biggest hole on the roster in my opinion. Not even backup point guard, but that backup 3 spot.
No, I get that. I mean, and then too, even speaking about Vic, I mean, listen, he's also proved as a 3-point shooter. He has that became a shot that he was making consistently. Because I said my biggest issue with Vic early was that for everything he did, he would not give you much offensively at all. So you're getting like 0 to 2 points a night from him sometimes, and it's just like, Jesus, if you can give me something else with what you're giving me, all right, we can work with it. And then he started hitting the 3 ball, and it's like, all right, give me 2-3 threes a game, all right, we can do something. Yeah. So I think it just, I think Nah would be a person they would use at that spot for sure. So I wonder if it's one of those things where they know like we can kind of just be versatile with that.
Yeah,
we don't have to get just a immediate backup 3 for sure, just because we have flexibility with that position and we can do that according to matchup. So I would think that they'll evaluate it as the season goes on. I'm sure, and maybe like you said, experiment, give different guys opportunities. And just see how they do, especially because you want a skill that goes along with the shooters that you have, or with Trae, who can create shots for them. So, we'll have to see. Now, you said that was the biggest issue, but then people also may disagree and think backup point guard is the biggest issue.
Yeah.
It really just depends how you feel about Kobe Buffkin. I feel like we are at a point with Kobe Buffkin where I think he is in John Collins territory, where he will be scrutinized for every game. He has a bad game, get him off my team. If he has a good game, then it's like, all right. I guess I'll be quiet at night. It's one of those things where I just, how we were dissecting him during the summer league, it was kind of like, dang, this man scored 20 in like 3 of the games.
Yeah.
And we're like, I don't know about him. It's one of those, it's interesting because I think like, well, he scored, but he didn't really pass the ball, and all that discussion about like what he is, and then they obviously re-signed Keaton to a 2-way. So now that looks like your point guards. Plus, they could use Dyson as an option. I've said that I think they would rather not if they don't have to, but they know they can. So how do you feel about Kobe Buffkin? Are you out on Kobe? Are you in on Kobe? Are you like, hey, he hasn't even played a full 82-game season technically yet out of his 3 years. So he just needs time to play, make mistakes, and develop.
Yeah, I mean, I like to say that I think I'm the leader of the Buffkin army just because I naturally, like, I was every single game he played last year, I think I snipped up all his highlights and clipped them together. Like, I'm a full-time Kobe Buffkin believer. That being said, Summer League was a rather disappointing experience, in my opinion. I don't take away anything from Summer League. You can be shit as a first-year player. You can be terrible as a second-year player. All things, it's a learning experience. My one rule in Summer League is, though, as a third-year player, if you are bad in Summer League, your time in the league is pretty much – I think it's a very high correlation that your time in the league will be very short. And that's not to say I think Kobe was bad in Summer League by any means, because, like you said, he did score 20 in a lot of the games. He had some good assist numbers in some of the games, kept the turnovers low in others, and then some turnovers were an issue in other games. But that being said, there's just signs there that I'm a little scared about, considering how I viewed him as a prospect. Most notably is he was a great finisher in college, and that was his strength. Get to the rim, finish. He has this pull-up game too, but where his strength as a prospect is I'm going to get to the paint. I'm going to take tough layups, but I'm going to make tough layups. I think he was like a 77th percentile finisher. That's like a stat with Kobe that resonated with me for 2-3 years. And so, like, you understand why the Hawks took him. He's a guard that can play with Trae, without Trae. He's a good defender. I think he has the potential to be a great defender with kind of his instincts and kind of how he positions himself and uses his long wingspan to kind of create havoc as far as steals, but also as a low man in help and in rotation. But man, the finishing is looking a little suspect to me. I don't know if it's kind of he's just had so many injuries, he hasn't been able to kind of adjust his body to taking contact and kind of going about it like that. But it is a little scary that I feel like he just stops his drives a lot sooner now and picks his dribble up much earlier than he was doing in college, and he's kind of a little bit hesitant to get to the rim all the way. So that's my one red flag. I do believe in him, but the way Anzi has constructed this roster, if people are complaining about the backup point guard spot, I think they're just looking for something to complain about because, like you said, they got Dyson that they can throw there, who increasingly at the end of last year was getting much more on-ball reps and was looking good at it. You'll get Jaylen back into that role when he was healthy, playing basically as a pseudo backup point guard, running the offense basically damn near every possession he was coming down the court. So you have him. I believe in Nikhil as a backup point guard option. I think he's going to be very well in secondary action. And then a guy that I think people are sleeping on is Luke Kennard. I know we think of Luke Kennard as this 40% three-point shooter. He's going to be our white boy to like a Garrison Matthews, a Corver, and so forth. But I really think that he has a lot of on-ball skills, and it wouldn't shock me if he gets a big run as kind of the backup point guard with the ball in his hands to do something. I'm not saying it's going to be great or it's going to be perfect, but I think there's just so much talent that even if Kobe busts in a way, the season won't go derailed because we don't have a backup point guard. I think that's just a kind of excuse that people are baking in the event things go south. But that's just my opinion.
I think too, it's one of those situations where I've also said with the backup point guard position, you're going to get limited minutes. Like this isn't a position where you're like the back point guard play 20
literally
minutes. Like
10 minutes at most, 10, 12 minutes in a playoff game at most.
Exactly. And I've always asked every Hawks fan, I guess I'll ask you too, like what type of backup point guard would you want? Do you want a scorer? Do you want a facilitator? Do you want a defender? What would work best? Because I mean, out of the last 3 years, we've kind of had that. We had Rondo. Well, the issue is he couldn't really score. And then we had Lou, which worked at times, but we know he's a liability defensively, and he isn't really a facilitator. You really just kind of respect him to score the ball. And then you had DeLon Wright, which at the beginning of the year, his shot wasn't falling, even though he was still giving you good defense. But, obviously, you're like, oh, he's missing threes, get him on my team. And then, he started hitting threes late, and then the defense was there. And you're like, well, okay, because you could play him on the floor with Trae. It's like, I like this. So, and I feel like with Kobe, I think, like you said, the defense, and then I think I see people say kind of like maybe he should just focus on scoring, and kind of go with that. So, what do you think they would need from that position? Like scorer, facilitator, defender, 2 out of the. I mean, obviously, it would be great if you have 2 out of 3, but like, what are you thinking? Like that would be best for that second unit.
For the second unit, I mean, especially with how I envision the team kind of stacking KP and Trae on and off the court now, or I should say Trae, KP, and Jaylen on and off the court now, I think they really just need a facilitator, someone that can get these guys the ball in the right spots, can run action, can get them organized, can get them in and out of actions really quickly and kind of just get the offense going, and then let Jaylen or KP especially just be the offense you need when Trae is taking a rest. I think you hit the nail on the head that like the backup point guard spot for Atlanta is never going to be an attractive spot. Like Trae is going to play those minutes. He's going to play 36 minutes in the regular season. That's going to go up to 40 in the playoffs. And so you're a very limited role. And I think they've it hasn't worked out exactly how we want to outside of really DeLon, but I think they're looking at the right types of players to put in that spot. The right type of player, in my opinion, is a combo guard. It's someone with size that, they'll spend primarily most of the time playing backup point guard, but in the event someone needs to slide in with Trae, they can do that too. And so you had DeLon, you have Kobe now, who actually has not played a single minute with Trae on the court, and I think that's doing Kobe a disservice himself. And so I think they're looking at the right mold of player. It's just hasn't worked out necessarily. But again, I just don't foresee it being a problem. If if your expectations for that backup spot is our offense is amazing with Trae and it craters without him, then like you're just setting yourself up to be disappointed. The offense is going to crater no matter what. You would just ideally hope that like now that you have an actual second option in KP or Jaylen emerges as that, or a Zach or Dyson even take leaps in scoring. Now you have enough offense to survive and not be bottom 10 like you have been when Trae sits, or as one of the worst offenses when Trae sits, but you can be actually just middle of the pack. And that's what I've been striving for.
Yeah, I think, that's obviously the biggest thing is when he leaves the floor, hey, just kind of maintaining. It's about maintaining. Can you maintain? Like, it's basically a game of runs. Can we not be run by the other team? If it's like Trae's off for 4 minutes and it's like 11-12, it's like, all right. Like, we can work with that. We just don't want come off the floor and then the team make 8-0 run. And it's like, well, shoot, now we're behind the 8 ball. So, and I think that's something I think they're going to try to obviously work. I think Quinn believes in obviously the schemes and what he's doing and trying to, scheme that together. And I think having Jaylen, because it'll be interesting you mentioned that, because I remember last year they staggered Jaylen and Trae. They did that for the majority of the season. Then I remember towards the end when before Jaylen, like I heard they started kind of staggering them both off the floor at the same time, on the floor at the same time. And so I'm wondering with KP, how does that change things? Like who are they going to stagger Trae with? Is it going to be Jaylen? Is it going to be KP in that situation? Right? Like because they have two options now. That's why.
I think it's probably going to be with he'll go off the court with Jaylen. And I think KP will be the main focal point because, frankly, I don't know. I'm not sure how Quinn will like it, kind of like the mid-post pull-ups that KP has, but his numbers and touch are quite impressive. So I'm sure that he'll be kind of the go-to guy in the minutes that Trae sits. But I don't know, man. We see Dyson been working in the offseason. We've been Zach working in the offseason. And one of these guys can come take a leap. And I really think Dyson has a scoring leap in him. I think we have options, man. I'm not saying that the offense is going to be good when Trae sits, but it's going to be serviceable this year, I think. And if they can just be serviceable, then they're going to win a lot of games. So,
are you calling for the Jimmy Butler leap for Dyson Daniels right now?
The Jalen Brunson leap. That's my hot take in the background. But I don't know if it's ever going to happen with Trae here. So, but we'll see.
Hey, listen, people see Dyson hitting crossovers and pulling up for the J, and it's like, Dyson, don't do this to me.
I'm telling you, man.
Tell me you go start taking people off the dribble. Hey, if he wins Most Improved Player again, that'd be something too. Then probably a first, second team all defense too. Like Dyson, really, man. If he explodes, man, that completely flipped the fortunes of this team.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, that would be big, man. But hey, I appreciate you, Preet, for coming on, man, talking some Hawks with me, man. I really enjoyed this episode with you, man. Let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, find me on Twitter, Preet410_. About the only place where I keep the community tight on Hawks basketball. So I'm going to try to be much more positive this year. I have high expectations, but I'm not going to be negative off the jump. Everybody gets a clean slate, including Azza and Zach, and I'm just going to go from there and let them play up and down into my good spots. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter, and that's about it. But thanks for having me, man. This was a great time. I love talking Hawks basketball. We're in that dreaded period of the summer right now, so this is nice to kind of just get my thoughts out there, get your thoughts, and kind of just go about it as we get to football season here, and then shortly Hawks basketball with training camp and the first game.
Yeah, I agree with that, sir. And like I said, I appreciate you coming on to the show. Obviously, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to the channel, like the video. If you're listening through audio, definitely go ahead and leave a 5-star rating on the podcast so more people can see it. Follow me on Twitter at Brycey_2K as well, where I keep all my takes on the Hawks. Like he said, we are going through a dead period right now. So right now it's primarily Falcons, but because I do both. But when the season starts heating up, we'll definitely be on top of that, and obviously planning to be out there again this year at Media Day. So really excited for that as well. But like I said, Preet, I appreciate you coming on to the show, sir. And I think that's about it for us here at Believe in Hawks. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks.